Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the last human evacuation ship, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot against the cosmic void. The Galactic Council's ultimatum had been clear. Humanity was too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to remain in civilized space. They had 72 hours to abandon their homeworld and never return. The alien armada surrounding Earth was a testament to the galaxy's unified fear of humanity. Crystalline Vorthak dreadnoughts hung in space like floating cathedrals, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with contained energy. The insectoid Zephyrians had deployed their hive ships, each one a living organism capable of spawning thousands of fighter craft. Even the usually neutral ethereal collective had sent their reality-bending vessels, ships that existed partially in hyperspace, and could phase through solid matter at will. "Ironic, isn't it?" muttered Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's former ambassador to the Galactic Council. His diplomatic robes were torn and stained from the hasty evacuation. "They fear us because we're the only species that's never been conquered. Every other race in the galaxy has a history of submission, of bowing to superior force. We're the anomaly." Sarah turned from the viewport, her military uniform bearing the scars of the final battles on Earth's surface. The evacuation hadn't been peaceful. Several alien species had attempted to claim human territory before the exodus was complete, leading to brutal skirmishes that only reinforced the galaxy's perception of human savagery. "Captain Rodriguez is reporting from the engineering fleet," announced Lieutenant Jackson, his young face pale with exhaustion. "They've successfully extracted the quantum foundries from Luna Base. The industrial complexes from Mars are also secured, along with the genetic banks from Europa." Sarah nodded grimly. While the galaxy saw only refugee ships fleeing in defeat, they had actually orchestrated the greatest heist in cosmic history. Every piece of advanced technology, every industrial facility, every scientific breakthrough that had made humanity competitive with species thousands of years more advanced, all of it was being quietly relocated to their true destination. The official records showed humanity heading toward the galactic rim, toward empty space where they could live in exile without threatening anyone. What the records didn't show was the massive fleet of disguised vessels that had departed months earlier, carrying the bulk of human infrastructure to a location that existed only in the most classified military databases. "Signal from the Prometheus," Jackson continued, referencing the flagship of their hidden fleet. "Admiral Torres confirms that the Sanctuary Protocol is now active. All strategic assets have reached the designated coordinates." Dr. Webb raised an eyebrow. "The Corvin Nebula? That radioactive maze? The Council surveyed it centuries ago and declared it uninhabitable." "Which is exactly why it's perfect," Sarah replied. "The nebula's radiation interferes with long-range sensors, and the gravitational anomalies make navigation nearly impossible without our quantum computers. To the galaxy, it's a dead zone. To us, it's the perfect place to build something they never expected." The evacuation fleet consisted of 300 ships carrying 8 billion humans, the largest forced migration in galactic history. But these weren't defeated refugees. They were the most adaptable, resilient, and innovative species the galaxy had ever encountered, and they had just been given the ultimate motivation: survival through superiority. As the fleet approached the jump point that would take them beyond Council space, Sarah received an encrypted transmission from the advance teams. The message was brief, but electrifying. "Foundation established. Construction proceeding ahead of schedule. Welcome to New Terra." The jump to hyperspace felt different this time. It wasn't an escape. It was a strategic withdrawal. The galaxy had made a catastrophic error in judgment. They had assumed that exiling humanity would eliminate the threat. Instead, they had freed humanity from all galactic laws, all treaties, all restrictions on technological development and military expansion. "Estimated time to reach the nebula?" Sarah asked. 47 days at maximum burn," Jackson replied. The supply ships report full stocks of raw materials and fabrication equipment. We can begin immediate construction upon arrival. Dr. Webb was studying intelligence reports on his tablet. The Council is already moving to partition our former territory. The Vorthak are claiming Earth, the Zephyrians want the outer colonies, and the Ethereals are interested in our research stations. They think they've won. Let them celebrate, Sarah said quietly. In 50 years, when their children ask how the human empire conquered half the galaxy, they'll remember this moment. They'll remember that they had the chance to coexist with us peacefully, and they chose war instead. The fleet's destination was more than just a hiding place. Deep within the Corvin Nebula lay a cluster of mineral-rich worlds, each one perfectly positioned for the construction of the most advanced military-industrial complex the galaxy had ever seen. The nebula's unique properties would allow them to experiment with technologies that were banned or impossible in normal space. Lieutenant Jackson looked confused. "Empire, ma'am? I thought we were just establishing a survival colony." Sarah's expression hardened. "The galaxy has a disease, Lieutenant. They think strength comes from numbers, from ancient technologies handed down unchanged for millennia. They've forgotten how to adapt, how to innovate, how to fight for something worth dying for. We're going to cure them of that delusion." The evacuation ships continued their journey through hyperspace, their passengers unaware that they were about to become the founding population of the most aggressive expansion in galactic history. In the hidden cargo bays, advanced AI systems were already running simulations for new weapons technologies. Quantum foundries were being prepared to manufacture materials that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. And deep in the encrypted databases, military strategists were finalizing plans for the systematic conquest of every species that had voted for humanity's exile. The Corvin Nebula had been humanity's secret for over a decade. Long-range exploration missions had discovered its potential years before the exile, and contingency plans had been in place since humanity first joined the Galactic Council. The aliens had played directly into human hands, providing the perfect justification for what came next. As the fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace, Sarah stood once again at the observation deck. This time, however, she wasn't looking back at what they had lost. She was looking forward to what they were about to build. "Begin Phase 1 of the Dominion Protocol," she commanded. "It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you corner the apex predator." The last transmission from Earth had been a simple message broadcast on all frequencies. "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for their generous gift. We will make excellent use of our new freedom." At the time, it had been dismissed as bitter sarcasm from a defeated species. The galaxy was about to discover how wrong they were. 25 years had passed since humanity's exile, and the galaxy had largely forgotten about the dangerous species that once threatened their peaceful existence. The former human territories had been divided among the major powers, and life had returned to the comfortable stagnation that characterized most galactic civilizations. Trade routes hummed with commerce, diplomatic conferences settled minor disputes, and the great wheel of cosmic bureaucracy turned as it had for thousands of years. Deep within the Corvin Nebula, however, something unprecedented was taking shape. Admiral Elena Vasquez walked through the command center of Fortress Prime, the largest artificial structure ever built by human hands. The station was a marvel of engineering that defied conventional physics, its quantum-locked superstructure existing partially outside normal spacetime to avoid detection. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, she could see the sprawling industrial complex that humanity had carved from the nebula's heart. 12 worlds had been completely transformed into specialized manufacturing centers. New Geneva hosted the genetic laboratories where human evolution was being accelerated through carefully controlled enhancement programs. Every child born in the nebula possessed superior reflexes, enhanced cognitive abilities, and biological adaptations that made them immune to most known pathogens and toxins. New Tokyo had become the technological heart of their hidden empire, its massive quantum computing arrays running simulations that would have required centuries using traditional methods. The breakthrough discoveries emerging from its research facilities were advancing human science at an exponential rate. They had cracked the secrets of exotic matter manipulation, developed faster-than-light communication systems that bypassed known physics, and created AI constructs so advanced they bordered on true consciousness. Status report from the construction fleets? Admiral Vasquez inquired of her aide, Captain Morrison, whose augmented neural implants allowed him to process data streams that would overwhelm an unmodified human brain. Battlefleet Prometheus has completed field trials of the new Void Serpent-class destroyers, Morrison reported. Data flowing directly into his consciousness from the nebula's vast information network. Initial tests confirm that our quantum stealth technology is completely undetectable by current galactic sensor arrays. The ships can phase through solid matter for up to 37 minutes before quantum coherence degrades. Morrison paused as additional data streams reached him. The Titan shipyards report successful completion of the first Harbinger-class dreadnought. Length, 15 kilometers. Crew complement, 50,000 enhanced humans. Primary armament, reality distortion cannons capable of collapsing local space-time. Estimated time to destroy a Class 5 battle station, 4 minutes. Admiral Vasquez nodded with satisfaction. The Harbinger represented everything the galaxy feared about human ingenuity. While alien civilizations had spent millennia perfecting variations of energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, humans had taken a fundamentally different approach. Why destroy enemy ships when you could simply make them cease to exist? The transformation of humanity within the nebula had been total. The exile had stripped away the cultural and technological limitations that had kept them roughly equal to other galactic species. Free from treaties that prohibited certain research, unbound by ethical committees dominated by alien sensibilities, humanity had embraced their true potential. And the intelligence reports from Council Space? Vasquez asked. Exactly as predicted, Admiral. The major powers are showing signs of technological stagnation. The Vorthak Empire hasn't developed a new ship design in over a century. The Zephyrian Collective continues to rely on biological technology that's fundamentally limited by evolutionary constraints. The Ethereal Collective remains obsessed with philosophical pursuits rather than practical advancement. Morrison's expression grew more serious. However, there have been some concerning developments. Several border worlds have reported strange energy signatures that don't match any known technology. The timing suggests these might be early human scouting missions, but the signatures are so advanced that local authorities have dismissed them as sensor ghosts. The scouting missions were part of Phase 2 of the Dominion Protocol. For the past decade, heavily modified human operatives had been infiltrating galactic civilization. These agents were barely recognizable as the species that had been exiled decades earlier. Genetic modifications allowed them to pass as members of other species, while their enhanced capabilities made them perfect for intelligence gathering and sabotage operations. Dr. Chen's team has an update from the Evolution Project, Morrison continued, accessing another data stream. The latest generation of enhanced humans shows remarkable adaptability. Subjects can survive in hard vacuum for over an hour, process information at rates approaching AI-level efficiency, and demonstrate limited psychic abilities that seem to bypass normal physics. Admiral Vasquez paused at this news. The psychic abilities were an unexpected development, emerging naturally as human consciousness expanded to accommodate their enhanced neural architecture. Initial tests suggested these abilities could interfere with alien technology in ways that weren't yet fully understood. The observation deck offered a view of the nebula's crown jewel, the Genesis rings, massive orbital structures that served as both training facilities and testing grounds for humanity's most ambitious projects. Within those rings, the next generation of human warriors was learning to pilot weapon systems that could reshape reality itself. "Incoming priority transmission from Agent Blackwood," Morrison announced. "He's embedded deep within the Vorthak trade networks." The holographic display materialized, showing a figure that appeared to be a typical Vorthak crystal being, but Admiral Vasquez could see the subtle signs that marked him as human. Enhanced bone density gave him the crystalline appearance, while bioluminescent implants mimicked the natural light patterns of Vorthak communication. "Admiral, I've confirmed intelligence about a developing situation in the outer spiral," Blackwood reported. "3 minor species have formed a defensive alliance after encountering what they describe as ghost ships conducting unknown surveys of their territories. The Council is treating this as a minor piracy issue, but we know these are our deep reconnaissance units." Vasquez frowned. The timeline for Phase 3 might need acceleration if their activities were drawing attention sooner than planned. "What's the Council's current military readiness?" "Unchanged for the past 50 years, Admiral. They maintain patrol fleets sufficient for policing operations, but nothing approaching wartime mobilization. Most species consider large-scale conflict impossible due to the web of trade dependencies and diplomatic agreements. They've structured their entire civilization around the assumption that war is obsolete." This was precisely what human strategists had predicted. The galaxy's peace had made them complacent, their prosperity had made them soft, and their diversity had made them assume that cooperation was always possible. They couldn't conceive of an enemy that had evolved beyond their understanding of warfare itself. "How many species have adopted our technology through black market channels?" Vasquez asked. Morrison consulted his data streams. 17 confirmed cases of minor powers acquiring human-derived weapons through intermediary dealers. They believe they're purchasing advanced technology from an unknown species in the far rim. Performance tests show our deliberate limitations are holding. These weapons are superior to current galactic standard, but nowhere near our actual capabilities. The black market seeding was another element of the master plan. By introducing limited versions of human technology, they were simultaneously gathering intelligence on galactic military capabilities while slowly raising the baseline level of warfare. When the human empire finally revealed itself, the galaxy would already be partially dependent on human innovations. "The latest projections for full-scale operations?" Vasquez inquired. "Dr. Rahman's strategic analysis suggests we could achieve complete galactic dominance within 18 months of initiating open hostilities," Morrison reported. However, his models also indicate that a demonstration of overwhelming force might secure voluntary submission from most species, potentially reducing the conflict duration to less than 6 months. Admiral Vasquez considered this carefully. The goal had never been to destroy the galaxy's civilizations, but to bring them under human leadership. Humanity had learned from their exile that the galaxy needed structure, direction, and the kind of adaptive leadership that only their species possessed. "Signal the fleet commanders for a strategic conference," she decided. "It's time to finalize Phase 3 protocols. The galaxy has enjoyed their peace long enough." As she walked through Fortress Prime's corridors, Admiral Vasquez passed laboratories where humans were unlocking the fundamental secrets of existence, training facilities where soldiers learned to manipulate space-time as a weapon, and industrial complexes that could manufacture impossible materials on a galactic scale. The exile that was meant to remove humanity from galactic affairs had instead created the most powerful military force the universe had ever seen. The final irony was that humanity's transformation had been driven not by hatred, but by a genuine desire to improve galactic civilization. The species that had exiled them were stagnant, unable to evolve, trapped by their own success. Humanity would free them from that stagnation, whether they wanted freedom or not. Phase 3 would begin soon, and the galaxy would finally meet the empire they had unwittingly created. The first sign that the galaxy's comfortable peace was ending came during a routine council meeting on Nexus Prime, the political heart of galactic civilization. Ambassador Thekvar of the Zephyrian Collective was presenting the quarterly trade reports when the massive holographic display suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in as every electronic system in the chamber began experiencing cascading failures. Outside the council chambers, the sky above Nexus Prime was changing. Where once there had been empty space, massive structures were materializing as if reality itself was being rewritten. Ships beyond anything in the galactic databases emerged from what appeared to be tiers in space-time, their hulls gleaming with technologies that shouldn't exist. High Counselor Viridian, the ancient ethereal who had presided over galactic affairs for 3 centuries, felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia: genuine fear. The newcomer ships weren't just advanced. They were operating on principles that violated established physical laws. One vessel appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while another seemed to be constructed from crystallized time itself. Unknown vessels. Identify yourselves and state your intentions, broadcast Fleet Admiral Zixthan from the Orbital Defense Station. His crystalline voice carried the authority of someone who had never encountered a threat the Council couldn't handle through diplomacy or overwhelming numbers. The response came not through normal communication channels, but as direct neural transmission that every sapient being on Nexus Prime received simultaneously. The voice was unmistakably human, but enhanced beyond recognition, carrying harmonics that resonated with the fundamental frequency of consciousness itself. Greetings, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. By the authority of the Terran Empire, I hereby announce the end of your stewardship of galactic civilization. You are not under attack. You are being liberated. The council chambers erupted in chaos. Several representatives began shouting denials. Humans had been exiled decades ago, had fled to the galactic rim as broken refugees. The idea that they could return as conquerors was impossible to accept. High Counselor Viridian maintained his composure despite the growing terror in his ancient heart. Admiral Vasquez, if you are indeed human, you are in violation of the exile decree. Return to your designated territory immediately, or face the full military might of the Galactic Alliance. The laughter that followed was not cruel, but it carried an undertone that suggested the very concept of galactic military might had become obsolete. Counselor Viridian, your full military might is currently experiencing comprehensive system failures. Please direct your attention to your orbital defense grid. Every view screen in the council chambers activated, showing real-time feeds from Nexus Prime's supposedly impregnable defenses. The massive weapon platforms that could crack planets were simply shutting down, not destroyed, not damaged, but deactivated as if some external force had simply switched them off. Automated systems that had operated flawlessly for centuries were now displaying error messages in languages that didn't exist in any galactic database. How is this possible? Whispered Ambassador Kex of the Vorthak Empire, her crystalline form flickering with distress. Those systems are isolated, unhackable. They use quantum encryption that would take millennia to break. You're thinking in terms of your old technology, Admiral Vasquez replied, her enhanced voice carrying subtle harmonics that seemed to bypass rational thought and speak directly to primal understanding. We don't break your encryption, Ambassador. We simply convince your quantum states to assume different configurations. Reality is far more malleable than your species ever realized. The scale of the technological gap was becoming clear. This wasn't a military conquest in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration that humanity had evolved beyond the constraints that limited every other galactic civilization. They weren't using superior weapons, they were using superior understanding of the universe itself. "Impossible," declared General Mordak of the Hegemony Defense Forces. "No species advances that rapidly. Evolution, technological development, cultural change, these processes require millennia. You've been gone for barely 50 years. "General Mordak, you're making the classic error of linear thinking," Admiral Vasquez replied. "Your species developed slowly because you never faced true existential pressure. Exile provided us with the ultimate motivation. When survival depends on advancement, amazing things become possible." The holographic displays around the chamber began showing live feeds from across the galaxy. Human fleets were materializing in every major system simultaneously, not through conventional faster-than-light travel, but through what appeared to be instantaneous translocation across cosmic distances. The scope of the operation suggested that humanity had been planning this moment for decades. "What we discovered in our exile," Admiral Vasquez continued, "is that consciousness itself is the fundamental force of the universe. Your species never learned to properly integrate technology with evolved awareness. You remained trapped by the limitations of your original biology. We chose a different path." The council representatives were beginning to understand that they weren't witnessing a conventional invasion. The human ships weren't deploying weapons or making demands for surrender. Instead, they were simply present, waiting, demonstrating capabilities that made resistance not just futile, but conceptually meaningless. Ambassador Thekvar found his voice. "What do you want from us? Resources? Territory? Submission?" "We want to give you a gift, Ambassador," came the reply. "The gift of purpose, of growth, of a future that extends beyond the comfortable stagnation you've embraced for so many centuries. Look at your civilizations honestly. When was the last time any of your species produced a truly original idea? When did you last face a challenge that forced genuine evolution?" The silence that followed was damning. Most galactic species had achieved technological and cultural plateaus millennia ago, content to repeat successful patterns indefinitely. Innovation was discouraged as disruptive, change was seen as dangerous, and the primary goal of most governments was maintaining the status quo. High Counselor Viridian activated his personal communicator, attempting to contact the various fleet commands scattered across the galaxy. The responses, when they came, were uniformly disturbing. Every major military installation was reporting the same phenomenon. Their weapons were non-functional, their communications were being monitored by unknown entities, and their personnel were experiencing what could only be described as consciousness modification. "You're conducting mind control on galactic populations," Viridian accused, his ethereal form wavering with outrage. "Not control, Counselor. Awakening," Admiral Vasquez corrected. "We're removing the artificial limitations that your societies have placed on individual consciousness. Your people are finally being allowed to think clearly about their situations. Most of them are finding the experience liberating." The reports flooding in supported this claim. Across the galaxy, populations weren't panicking or resisting the human presence. Instead, they were experiencing what psychologists would later term cognitive liberation, the removal of cultural programming that had kept them locked in predetermined thought patterns. For the first time in generations, entire species were beginning to question the fundamental assumptions of their civilizations. "This is still conquest," protested General Mordak. "Regardless of your methods, you're imposing your will through superior force." "General, conquest implies taking something by force," Admiral Vasquez replied. "We're not taking anything. We're offering integration into something greater. Your species can continue to exist, to grow, to develop, but under guidance that actually understands the universe you live in. The holographic displays shifted again, now showing scenes from human space within the Corvin Nebula. The council representatives saw cities that defied conventional architecture, where buildings grew like living organisms, while remaining more advanced than anything in galactic civilization. They saw humans who had retained their essential humanity while becoming something far greater than their original limitations allowed. "This is what we're offering," Admiral Vasquez continued. "Not domination, but elevation. Your species have spent so long avoiding change that you've forgotten how to grow. We remember. We can teach you." Ambassador Kex studied the images carefully. "And if we refuse this gift, then you continue as you are, under our protection, until your people naturally choose otherwise. We're not forcing transformation, Ambassador. We're simply removing the artificial barriers that prevent it. Evolution will take its natural course." The genius of the human approach was becoming clear. They weren't conquering the galaxy through military force or political manipulation. They were conquering it through demonstration of superiority so complete that resistance became not just impossible, but irrational. Who would choose limitation when transcendence was offered freely? High Counselor Viridian made his decision with the weight of cosmic history. "What are your terms?" "No terms, Counselor," Admiral Vasquez replied. "Only an invitation. Join the Terran Empire as equal partners in the next stage of galactic evolution. Keep your cultures, your territories, your identities. Simply accept guidance from a species that has learned to harness the true potential of consciousness." The vote, when it came, was unanimous, not because the Council feared human military might, but because they recognized the opportunity being offered. For the first time in galactic history, a species had emerged that could lead others toward genuine growth and development. As the formal ceremonies concluded and humanity took its place as the guiding force of galactic civilization, Admiral Vasquez allowed herself a moment of reflection. The exile that was meant to eliminate humanity's influence had instead given them the freedom to become what the galaxy truly needed: shepherds for species that had forgotten how to evolve. The irony was perfect, and the future was limitless.